you're about to undertake one of the most massive digital and agile transformations I've ever heard of. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SGN is a utility in the UK. We are undertaking a migration of all of our on-premise services, all of our enterprise applications over to a cloud environment. So a combination of SaaS, but largely into AWS. We are moving all of those applications, but also introducing concepts such as automated testing to ensure that we can deliver that migration in a consistent, efficient, repeatable way, but also start gaining all of those benefits of more agile delivery, higher quality delivery, and much more responsive to our business requirements.
Now, are all of your teams agile teams, or do you still kind of have a mix?
We're in the process of changing. So we've traditionally been a waterfall type organization. That's created a lot of frustration for our business. It's cost a lot of money to develop and to change. So we started this journey about a year ago in terms of adopting agile processes. We use Kanban to help visualize work. We're focusing much more in almost running two streams of approach to development, trying to introduce cross-functional teams into our business, combining IT in terms of technical resources, business solutions resources, working with the business under the business guidance. That underpins a general strategy that we have of the devolution of IT back into the business, where we're responding to strategic business need rather than focusing on tactical IT delivery. With the forthcoming migration that we have, Agile Delivery, insight into that progress and pipeline of delivery is going to be critical.
So ALM Octane really brings the strengths and foundation that we had from looking at the visibility and insights of quality, but blends in those agile practices.
We have a number of challenges in the process that we're following at the moment. So we use different tools to perform different functions. How do we start bringing that together, but also supporting the use of open source tools like Jenkins, which are fundamental to the work we're doing. So I think we've got one challenge there around consolidation of tooling. I think if I look at the other key challenges that we have a very tight timeline to complete this migration. So we have 18 months to take all of our enterprise applications out of those data centers. So having visibility of progress within that pipeline, but also being able to start understanding problems before they actually occur is going to be critical to us. And I think the final challenge that we're seeing is, whilst as a technology function, we have this migration plan and it's being done to deliver our corporate strategy, to be more agile, to be more secure, to be more durable. We also have to be cognizant that during those 18 months, we also have business change coming through. How do we make sure that we are tracking not only all the delivery focus to form part of that migration and the move into AWS, but also to bring in, to run occasionally in parallel those business change activities, and how do we track the combination of those code into a single release process? It's going to be really interesting to understand more about how Octane can specifically help us around some of those elements.
One of the things that we really focused on in ALM Octane was really, you mentioned Jenkins, you mentioned hooking into the dev ecosystem. Those plug seamlessly into Octane. It's a foundation of it. And so I think one piece of it is looking at your agile practices. You're really looking at speeding up your delivery, looking at the quality aspects. Are you really interested in looking at that from across multiple teams and seeing really what's the health of my business at scale? Is this a challenge?
We're focusing on really where's the value to the business out of this across multiple work streams, across multiple activities. And we're starting to learn more from our business data. I think one of the things that we've lacked in the past is actually learning some more from our operational data, from our IT data, from our delivery data. yeah, we're always interested in terms of how do we make more intelligent decisions rather than those tactical decisions that we always make on individual projects or in individual work streams. How do we become more strategic in our thinking?
Excellent. So now you've got your team building software, using Jenkins, continuously building the software. Build breaks. Do you ever have a problem where you find that your teams are wasting a ton of time just trying to figure out what went wrong?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So this is one of our problems. We have the same issue. We always look at this because it can be a number of things. One of the things that we're working at building is actually the ability to look at all of this data and actually build out a machine learning algorithm to actually be able to say, oh, well, when we spotted this code change and this showed up in the log file, we knew it was because of a code issue. Or when the log file says there's a connection error, we know it's probably a DB issue or a networking issue. I mean, can you see this as being something valuable to kind of speeding your operations up?
We've taken measures to help mitigate some of those challenges. So the use of automation is enabling us to test and develop in identical environments to production instances. What it doesn't take out of the equation are the changes that code configuration changes make. It's a challenge for any organization, but when you're in that large migration factory type approach of migrate, 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 whilst also trying to factor in and support business change, anything that helps us get to the bottom of that is always welcome.
So how fast do you think you're going to be delivering software in this new model? Is it going to be once every 3 years?
Well, I hope not. I mean, from our organization, traditionally we've had to batch releases to our most important applications because manual testing takes so long, issue resolution takes so long. Typically at the moment we're only able to release twice a year. Only being able to introduce change twice a year is a massive limitation, and it's something that I think traditionally has damaged the relationship between the wider business and technology and IT departments. Our aspiration within SGN is to get to the point where we can release on a weekly basis, which for technology companies may sound still very slow and very relaxed, but for an organization that is safety critical, that forms part of critical national infrastructure in the UK, and has a cultural mindset that sometimes change introduces risk, and change, is it really worth introducing, to a point where we can confidently, reliably, securely introduce change on a weekly basis is an astronomical step forward for us. So that's the aspiration that we're working to, and we can only do that with automated testing. We can only do that through the use of automation in the environments that we build, the way that we build them, the way that we test them. Getting towards a weekly release in our key applications will be a major step forward to us. And it's something, frankly, that we owe the business. We owe the business the need to be agile and to deliver quickly.
It's everything about time to market, getting to weekly releases. We talk about pipeline failures and how to really quickly understand what the root cause is, but now you're touching on a slightly different problem. And this challenge is, we see it in every industry, every company, is that need to go from manual testing to automation.
And when I think about people, process, technology, in many ways the technology is by far and away the easiest part of that. One of the biggest challenges we faced is people. And similarly, I say challenges, but also one of the greatest opportunities we have is around our people. So this type of migration is fundamentally a transformation. It's a transformation in the way that our people work. Some people embrace change and flourish. Some people find that difficult to adapt to. And I think going through this process, it's been wonderful to see some people blossoming. It's great to see people develop in that way. But it's a challenge in terms of freeing people up to step away from their daily jobs, to give them the capacity to learn. It's absolutely something that we're committed to make work.
Is test planning and understanding what to test, a challenge you still have. Do you still have the 3,000 regression suite that takes a month to deliver and you have no idea whether there's any reason that you're running it or not? Is this still a problem?
It's a problem in two factors. There's always a concern that you've missed key things to test, but similarly, there's always a significant concern that you're testing things that just aren't going to be impacted, and you're spending time, money, and effort focusing on areas that frankly don't need to be focused upon. So it's always a concern, and I think understanding more in terms of helping our testers as they introduce new changes, guiding them into areas where they should be considering impacted areas of applications will help us tremendously. And most of the time we have to do that through inherent knowledge or retained knowledge of those manual testers in those applications. And what that creates is frankly a degree of dependence upon individuals. We have to make sure that knowledge is shared and is available for the wider team. So anything that helps us cut through and help people make those decisions without a retained history of specific application knowledge will help us.
Well, I think we're going to try to help you in about 3 different ways. The first one I'm really excited about was to actually just give you a way of visualizing via heat map how exactly your testers are testing and what. So we want to help drive better exploratory testing capabilities.
Yes.
I think this is one way. The second way is to take these tests that you've done, and when you run them, link them to the code execution path. And why do we want to do that? Because we really believe that if we can tell you this is what code changed and it's linked to these tests, you should start by running these tests, and this frees up time to build more tests and help increase your automation suite.
When we look at testing, we always take a risk-based approach, but it's a risk-based approach sometimes not born out of the greatest insight. So I think anything that helps us understand exactly which areas of the application a change is impacting will help us improve the quality of that risk-based assessment. So that's music to my ears.
You know what? I love this risk-based assessment, and this comes to like the third way we want to help you. The third way is to actually start saying, what if we could overlay what your testers are doing with what your users are using in production, and say, here's what you're testing, here's what your users are doing. You're either testing things that they never do, or you're missing things that you should be testing, and give you that insight and visibility. Does that help you?
Tremendously. We have this focus on reliability, on security, on looking after our people and our customers. So anything that makes us or adds a surety to making sure that we're testing the right things can only help that. And it's really important that everything that we're doing, we can tie back to business value.
But all of this comes down to timelines.
Yes.
And so one of the questions I have for you is, when you're actually executing on your agile timelines, your sprints, are you always on track, always on time? You always hit releases exactly when you expect them?
No, of course not. I mean, it's the nature of sprints. You can't always plan for external influences. We've taken an agile approach. We define sprints. We work to those, but you know, the nature of agile is you always have that feedback loop, that review at the end of each sprint, just to understand what could be delivered, what wasn't delivered, what has to go back in the backlog. But again, anything that helps us gain visibility, rather than having to do a significant amount of work as a retrospective to understand each time, will help us.
We've got the insight coming from what your developers are doing, hooking into your CI. We've got the insight that's coming from what your testers are doing, where you're at. And then integral into the ALM Octane platform is the Agile Planning. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is actually, again, using an algorithm to learn how you executed in the past and come up with a early warning system early on in the sprint to say, you know what? In previous sprints, we've seen these multiple factors, from areas of the code that you've touched to tests that are continuously failing or whatever it may be. We think you're going to have an issue at this sprint. Maybe we'll raise it up right now so you can start to address and correct it up front.
These are practices that we adopt in terms of our operational work. We identify early when jobs are going into jeopardy, when it's unlikely that we might be able to get to the next job in time because one has overrun. And applying some of those practices back into IT in a proactive way is absolutely of massive interest to us. The understanding of big data, the predictive analytics coming out of driving intelligence, the optimization of planning, scheduling of work and activities, and then feeding that back into a continual loop. Those are great things that we do in the business. It's now time for us to start bringing that back into operations in IT. It's going to be a significant growth area, and it will only help us be more efficient in the future.
So there's one last thing I want to talk to you about before we kind of wrap up. Now, I have DevOps engineers in my team, right? Pushing out to Amazon. We use it all the time, but one of the questions I always take to my DevOps manager is, I'm a business guy. I care about how much am I spending and what value am I returning. But the one thing that I've found is once you get down to the execution stream, can you forecast how much you're going to spend on Amazon next month? Because I need to make sure that I've got my costs in control. I'll tell you, DevOps managers, not very good at that. Do you see this as a problem?
It's a problem, frankly, for anybody that moves into a cloud-based environment. The risk is always sprawl. Suddenly, cloud becomes a very expensive way of delivering IT services. So from our perspective, from the very outset, we've adopted this almost obsessive focus around automation and insight. And we work closely with ServiceNow and AWS to track and manage spend. We've started on this process that the only persistent environments are production. Everything else is created on demand as we need to. But that on-demand places a great deal of emphasis onto the requesters to make sure that they are turning off resources when they don't need it. Turning things off doesn't mean that it won't be there when they come in the morning. It just means that we're going to save costs. But we also need to factor in efficient planning of when we're going to use these non-production environments. The immediacy of provisioning environments in cloud can lead to this concept of a free-for-all where suddenly before you know you've got 10 different versions of the same environment. So code management, code pipeline management is essential for this being effective. It doesn't mean that people can't be agile. You just need to make sure that you know what's going on and you have that control and visibility.
Great. Well, Paul, it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you, a timeline of 18 months.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see the results, and on behalf of my team, the ALM Octane team, the predictive innovations, we're absolutely at your disposal to help you on your way.
And that's really important for us. These strategic relationships are essential to us, not only because it's the right thing to do for SGN as a company, but it helps de-risk the adoption of some of these technologies. Having access to product guys, having that really mutually beneficial relationship is really important to us. So I very much appreciate your offer, Andrew. So thanks you very much.